Welcome to Sidetrack, your sci-fi TV and movie channel. So could one of the most underrated sci-fi shows of the 90s be getting a reboot? Babylon 5 has been on HBO Max over the last few months, and its show creator, Michael J. Straczynski, has gone onto Twitter to tell everyone about it, but also to tell everyone that you can actually go on Amazon and see the full scripts. So you can actually read the full series and all those little bits that never quite made the screen. During that conversation, a Josh Crozier made a flippant comment. Wish we could get some new B5. Yeah, I know, I can dream, can't I? The show creator, though, J. Michael Straczynski, answered, and he said, who knows, this might not be so wild a dream as it appears. So what's that? Is he just teasing us? Or is there some preliminary conversations going on? Part of the why HBO have put Babylon 5 onto their streaming service in the first place is as a precursor to maybe us getting a reboot.
The Babylon Project was our last best hope for peace. It failed. But in the year of the Shadow War, it became something greater. Our last best hope for victory. The year is 2260. The place, Babylon 5.
Now, back in 2018, J. Michael Straczynski talked about how there was absolutely no chance Babylon 5 was going to be getting a remake. It's owned by Warner Brothers, and they're not interested. But we know that all of the streaming services at the moment are screaming out for new content. It's one of the reasons why Netflix is so massively in debt, because they plow so much money into content. The Disney Plus threat to that, the juggernaut that is Disney, is swallowing up content every chance it gets. And it's one of the reasons why I firmly believe we're going to see new series of Stargate and probably even Firefly. But would I want to see Babylon 5 come back? Like I said, I genuinely believe it was one of the most underrated sci-fi shows of the 90s. It did have an incredibly low budget, don't get me wrong, and there was lots of things wrong with the series. The first season in particular was actually quite dull. I didn't like Captain Sinclair, but that's why we got Sheridan in the second series. There are elements to the story that I absolutely adored though. I love that we see humanity at its best. Building the Babylon 5 station, for example, is us at our best. It's us wanting to create a place in neutral space for diplomacy and trade. It's us wanting to project peace into the galaxy. We also saw, though, humanity at its worst, when we were afraid. And I do think that that is something that reflects our current culture. We also saw a realistic vision of the future in Babylon 5, where we had the lower decks, sort of the brown zones, where people maybe didn't have enough, where the resources of the galaxy didn't spread so that everybody lived in peace and had full bellies and so on. Maybe not like the Star Trek version of the universe of the future. That also kind of reflects our current culture and the world today. And I think good sci-fi should do that. It should reflect the world that we live in. It should reflect our culture. There should be a moral to the story without necessarily ramming that moral down your throat. So I do think this is a story that can be told again, and can be told in a new way that, again, as I say, reflects the world 30 years on. I think enough time has gone by, though, that a reboot can work, but also a sequel to the series can't really work because it would smash the canon of the original series too badly. One of the things J. Michael Straczynski did was created a full arc in that series. It had a beginning, it had a middle, it had an end, and I think that should be left as it was. But there are some things I'd love to see in far more detail. The Babylon 5 movie, A Call to Arms, was probably my favourite part of the series, other than Series 3 and the finale of the Shadow War was epic, don't get me wrong. But I want to see more about the Minbari War. I'd love to see maybe at the start of Babylon 5, the Minbari aren't really involved, sort of thing. They're sort of on the outskirts. And perhaps we see the beginning of the Minbari conflict in the first series. I'd love to see a reimagining of how the Minbari War started, because it was so cleverly done in the film. Basically, the Earth Force approached the Minbari fleet. They didn't know anything about each other. Earth Force closed their weapon doors. They were saying, we're not a threat, we're not here to attack you. The Minbari, though, had a different philosophy. They opened their weapon doors. Their attitude being, this is what we have. You can see what we are armed with, and we are not going to attack you. We are not a threat. Those different philosophies is what triggered the war when somebody on an Earth Force vessel panicked and fired first. Babylon 5 could exist in that universe because obviously it's supposed to be a neutral zone, and we could see that maybe being respected during the first series, where it's kind of like a hub for what is going on. We then maybe see, I would love to see the series finale is when the war comes to Babylon 5, and hopefully through some brilliance of negotiation we see an end to that conflict. But all the way through that series we should start getting hints of the shadow threat. Perhaps that is why the conflict is forced to end. I never really liked the souls thing. You know, the conflict came to an end because they realised Minbari souls were being reincarnated into humans. I actually quite liked why humans never really understood why the Minbari surrendered, why they ended the conflict. So that was really clever. But two of the most important things they have to get right with this series if it does make a reboot. They have to get some of the characters right. So replacing Sheridan is vital. Like I said, the first series of Babylon 5 wasn't particularly good, and sadly one of those reasons was Captain Sinclair wasn't a particularly charismatic character. When Bruce Boxleitner came in, he brought that charisma. He brought a captain we liked, and just, brought a whole new energy to the series. Have to get Ivanova right. The captain's number 2. The conflict between them, so often at heads with each other, but together at the same time, brought a really interesting dynamic to the command structure of Babylon 5. As did Garibaldi and his character, the flawed human being that always kind of reminded me of Bruce Willis's character from Die Hard. Don't know why. Getting him right again is so important because his character was so important into the unraveling of the shadow threat and all the sort of background things that were going on, particularly with the Centauri. Actually getting the Centauri right is really important because they were a big part of the show. They brought a lot, obviously, the corruption and the sort of the twists in the background that was going on, but also they brought a sort of a comic element to the series. And getting the Vorlon right is important because obviously towards the end of the Shadow War, their character completely turned and they went from being the hope of the galaxy, really, the most powerful sort of species in the galaxy, to their biggest threat. They're logical in the way they think. I don't want to see them appear as an angel again, but other than that, the Vorlons were such an important character, and getting them right in some sort of reboot is going to be vital. And I don't mind if this show changes a little bit, if it comes back with some different twists, modernise it. But a couple of things I'd like to see not change too much. The Babylon 5 station design was brilliantly thought through. It was clever and it looked great. Don't change it too much. The Star Furies is still one of my favourite fighter designs in all of sci-fi.
Your escort's in place, Captain.
Thank you, Commander. Finishing systems check. Ready for launch.
You're clear for drop. Happy hunting.
It's one of those designs that you actually think that could work in real life, and it just looked amazing. The Minbari ships looked great. The Earth Force ships even. I like how they were sort of lower tech. We didn't have artificial gravity, so they've got that big section that rotates to create it. So if they keep those elements, modernise them a little bit, but not too much, bring in some really good characters, there is a core plot to this series that could be rebooted and remade that would make a really great modern TV show for some streaming service, probably HBO. And out of all of the series at the moment that we're looking at perhaps getting a reboot, Stargate, Firefly, Babylon 5 is the one that may not be the most successful, but it is the one that might be the most interesting. So, thanks. If you are new to the channel, please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. It really helps us out for all of these little videos I do, and I'll see you next time.